All right, guys, got a full slate today to go over, so it'll be fun. 4 games that I picked. Please hit the like, subscribe button, also the notification button to let you know anytime I post one of these. I'm Jeremy Conn. This is Lowdown with Pickdawgz.com. So I've tried to, what I typically do here, if anybody's new, is go over a lot of the weather situations, talk about some of the pitchers, things that I know, things that I look for. The one we did yesterday, there were so many dome games, it made it difficult. I am going to talk about 2 more dome games today, but I also want to get into, I primarily wanted to do this and kind of talk about the weather and bring things to your attention that I see, that I look for. But on the other side of it, too, it's like, I do this for a living. I talk sports for a living. I know a ton about these starting pitchers, and I watch so much sports, it's just ridiculous. It's I don't even know if I like it anymore. It just feels like work. No, I'm kidding. It's something that's kind of been in my blood. Like, I was always one of those guys that would sit down at noon and basically watch college football until Hawaii was done at 3. And then I started working a morning show and making business decisions. So, which sometimes those Monday night games, if it's an ugly game or somebody's up big at the half, old boy's going to bed. Got to get up and do it all over again. And I've told people this, one of the things that I've used to kind of, so I can see every football game, or at least all the ones I want, is you can watch an entire football game in 11 minutes on YouTube. They take out all the commercials, all the walking, all the BS. There really is, in every football game, only 10 to 12 minutes of action. The rest of it's dudes walking around and the clock running. So I speed that up and watch it with baseball games, depending on what happened in the game. I mean, you might get the 10 most important highlights and you watch it in 3 or 4 minutes. But there are opportunities to do that if you ever miss something. So I try to stay on top of everything. Like if the guys are playing in stadiums that they're not typically playing in when they go out of the country, learning about those stadiums. We had 2 incidents this year with, obviously the Rays playing where they're playing, and of course with the A's playing in Sacramento. One of the funny things about the Rays that I brought up is that they're road warriors the second half of the season because of hurricane season, and you just can't take a chance of having 2 series in a row where it just rains nonstop and they can't get any of those games in. So they're just going to be absolute road warriors. But it was brought up today, like, what happens if they make it to the World Series? They're not going to play in that little-ass stadium. I think they might move to Miami or Atlanta and play. We'll see, but I don't know. I'm rambling now. None of that stuff matters. Let's get into these games because I think this is the more important stuff. Let me start it off with the Blue Jays. We have Max Fried and Kevin Gausman going. The Yankees are at the Jays. It's obviously in a dome. I made a note of this because there is a chance they could open it. There's 10-plus mile-an-hour winds in, so if they do open it, just realize that it's going to be a bump to the under. But I like the over here, which might surprise you as I'm looking at it. I would lean towards the over. Anytime I'm saying a lean, guys, it's not necessarily a play that I'm going to be on. I'm just breaking down these games. Sometimes I am on those games, but I always tell you, like, free play at the end, usually it's going to be a play that I'm on as long as I see something of value on the day of. But I try to be as honest as I can, and I've even gone back and tried to respond if something changes, or let's say the weather changed, which does happen from time to time. It's not often, but it does. Sometimes it changes mid-game. But yeah, those are things I like to look at. So bringing this up, why would I suggest an over on this? Simply because I've been talking about Max Fried. Love the guy. I wanted him to come to Baltimore until I saw the money he got paid over 8 years, because the last 2 to 3 years of that deal is just going to be, we'll see what he looks like, but he's been often injured. He's pitched unbelievably well for the Yankees. He had an ERA in the ones for a long period of time. His last 3 starts, he's been very human. We've seen him get knocked around in one. We've also seen him, not go as deep into a game, put some more runners on base than you're accustomed to seeing. He's still an upper echelon pitcher. But I do think the Blue Jays, who don't strike out a ton facing a lefty with a predominantly right-handed lineup, it's going to be a good spot for their bats. So I'll take my chances. And the Yankees have a great bullpen, so if you are on the under here, that's the thing that goes your way. I want to talk about Kevin Gausman. So I watched this guy play for a long time. He really took off after he left the Orioles. Some things got fixed in Atlanta and then San Francisco, and he's been great in Toronto. The one thing I know about Kevin Gausman, because we've talked about it ad nauseum, when you're an analytical guy and you're playing the lefty-righty matchups, what do? Because Kevin Gausman is reverse splits. Righties hit him way harder than lefties do over the course of his career. And suggesting an over here is he's a solid pitcher and could shut down this Yankees lineup, but the Yankees have a ton of right-handed power. And it's not like the lefties can't beat him either. I think traditionally you would look at a matchup like this and go, it's an underplay because we have 2 good pitchers. I I feel differently about this just because of the way that these guys have been going. And the interesting thing was, like, I talked about, when I, like, for example, on Sunday, what a doozy when I lost the prop bet on Frankie Montas. But I said I like attacking pitchers when they come off of the IL, and Montas gave up 6 runs in the first 2 innings. I thought he would get pulled, except the Mets needed him to go deeper because the Pirates beat their ass all weekend. And then he got into the final inning he was going to pitch. He struck out the first guy. Then we get a couple guys on base, and then there's, I think, a ground out or whatever, fly out. So we got the last guy up, and it's Andrew McCutchen, and I'm going, don't strike out. I don't care. Pop the ball up on the infield, even though I had the over in that game as the weather play of the day on Sunday. And it's one of those weird moments where you're like, I can't believe this happened. A guy gave up 6 runs early. He only pitched 4 innings, and he still hung around, and he got 2 Ks in the last inning to make it 5, striking out the last batter. So I lost that, but I was right on Frankie Montas. Said the same thing about Max Scherzer. It's his second start back, and he's facing the Yankees, so we'll have to see how that goes later on Monday. This is obviously a Tuesday pod, and I haven't watched that game, but he's a guy that I'm attacking in this spot as well. So just something to think about. But again, over for the Yankees and Jays, that's where I would lean. Let's go to the A's and Rays. It's Jeffrey Springs versus Shane Baz. Baz, a former first-round pick that they've really expected to kind of take off, and he's just been hit or miss. I mean, he's got great stuff. It's just a matter of can he hone it, stop walking guys, and limit some of the hard contact that he's been giving up. Hasn't been the case for him this year. I thought he started to look pretty good at the end of last year, but not the case now. Jeffrey Springs, former Rays pitcher, and going up against his team. The wind's blowing out to center about 8 miles an hour. It's 90 degrees there. There is light rain, and I've talked about this on the East Coast. I don't know how much it affects Florida, but when I watched the Orioles there, those pitchers were just – they were so torn up. They were leaving stuff out over the plate. They looked exhausted. You watch guys get beat up on both teams, even though the Rays have really good pitching. So – with this spot, I would still lean towards the over here in this game. Again, when it rains on the East Coast and we get this heat, the humidity picks up, and in my opinion, the ball tends to carry more, and you see balls go out of the yard. If you watch the Orioles on Friday night when they scored 22 runs, and granted, I know a lot of that was off of position players at the end of the game, but it was just phenomenal home run hitting weather, and we talked about it. And it's something like, you want to get on those games. And when I say it's good home run hitting weather, what I mean is it pushes towards it. Like if the wind's blowing out and we have heat, obviously those things can affect the ball and obviously the pitcher and how he wants to work. So I do think those things are imperative in looking at those spots. But it's not always like, hey, this is a great spot, it's going to work out. I talked about a couple of the games we had over the weekend where it was like, one team was scoring all the runs. Oh, here you go. Here's 9-0 on a 9.5 game. And guess what? This team can't score a single run to help you out. So we had a couple of those tough losses, but it's part of the game. I'm still hitting at 60% plus, so I'm feeling good about baseball. But again, lean towards the over in the A's and Rays. Let's talk Guardians and Cubs. So this one has a little bit of weather. There wasn't a ton of great effect with weather today. But the Guardians and Cubs, we've got Gavin Williams and Matt Boyd. I've talked about Gavin Williams a ton here. I love the pitcher. He looked great in spring training. He's still hitting too many bats. The wind blowing in should help him a little bit at Wrigley, but it's not a great wind blowing in. But either way, I'll take that over it blowing out if I like the pitchers. I'm going to lean towards the under here. Matt Boyd's just been really good, and this Guardians team, they're not very good at the plate. They don't score a ton of runs, and I don't know what ownership's going to do there. I pray for you Guardians fans out there that they make a move for a couple of bats, and not just like these throwaway players. Like go out and get somebody of substance, but they typically don't do that. They find those like the Lane Thomases of the world, or I'm trying to think who else is there. Well, when they acquired Josh Naylor and even like the trade they made this offseason by trading Andre Gimenez to the Blue Jays, you're looking at it going, okay, if that's what you like, I got you. But they continue to go get like mid-level players, in my opinion, and not over the top. Like make that big splash one year for your fans. I know the attendance hasn't been great there, but with the Guardians and Cubs, again, this is an under spot for me. I love the way Matt Boyd's been pitching. I've talked about him. Used to be a top prospect for the Tigers. He was there in those very, very lean years. And he got hurt, never looked the same. And then since getting back with the Cubs here, he's looked pretty good this year. So I like him a lot, but I would lean under in this matchup. A couple of things before I get to the free play. There are strong winds with the Mets and Red Sox blowing out, so that's something for you guys if you want to look at. Supposed to be about 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. That is a bump to bats. And with the Nats game, I try to bring up if we have potential rainouts. It does not mean the game's going to get rained out. It doesn't even mean there's going to be a postponement or a delay or anything. But if you're betting, if you saw it, what game was it? Saturday when Paul Blackburn pitched, because I know two of my top plays this weekend were the Mets and Pirates over on Saturday and Sunday, and we hit both of those. But going back to that game, if you watched it, they had the first inning. You come out and you're seeing they had to scratch the starting pitcher for the Pirates. Who was it? Mitch Keller or God? Now I can't even remember who pitched Saturday. It doesn't matter. The point I'm trying to make is they had a weather delay in the first inning. And the Mets tried to bring Paul Blackburn out. And you might go, well, if he didn't throw, what's the big deal? Or if he only threw a little bit, you can't keep getting these guys warm and then letting them settle down, cool off, warm. With the bullpen, Buck Showalter, one of my favorite phrases in baseball, he calls it dry humping. You dry hump a relief pitcher when you get him up to throw and then you don't use him. And then you get him up again to throw and then you don't use him. Well, that's technically like him coming in the game, really. So that's why they try to get those guys in. And dry humping, well, you guys may look at it as something else, but this is kind of what they did to Paul Blackburn. And I'm not telling you that Blackburn's great or anything, but go look at what he did when he came in. Hit. I think he gave up 6 hits in a row or 6 base runners, and then they had to pull him. So when I bring up weather, the only reason is because I know a lot of people bet on the starting pitcher. You don't want to see one of those times where he comes in 3 innings and now you're laying minus 220 on a game or something, and now the pitcher's out of the game, and now you got to deal with the bullpen the rest of the way, and that's not what you bet on. So, and I know some guys will bet on the first 5 just to stay on the starting pitcher, but you can still get screwed with the rain. Now, the Nats, and who are they playing? The Nats, I don't have it in front of me here. I didn't write it down. They're at home, and when you look at where they're the rain there, I've talked about it. If it does stay in play and it rains, it's going to be hot there. So that is a bump to bats. But if we get that torrential downpour and it gets colder, it just scratch it off the list. Now let's get to the final game. We have San Francisco and Arizona, and I mainly wanted to focus on one of the pitchers here. And I don't know how much – I'm not a big game log guy, but I do like to see if there are trends. If a guy's getting better, Spencer Strider, you look at his – he's starting to get better as he pitches. I don't know what's going on with Zach Gallen. And when I throw these numbers at you, it's kind of shocking to see somebody that's this good pitch this way. In his last 10 starts, he has 1 quality start. 1 game where he gave up 1 run or less. Well, 1 game where he gave up 1 run. He didn't give up less. He gave up runs in every single game he pitched. And then usually there's some shutouts sprinkled in there. I'm not saying you got to shut out the team every time you got to go out, but keep your team in the game. He's had 1 quality start out of all of those games. And a quality start is 6 innings, 3 earned runs or less. One of the games out of the 10 games he pitched that he gave up 4 or more runs in 8 of those. One of the games he didn't, he gave up 3 and only went 5 innings. So, it's just been really ugly for him. And Hayden Birdsong, I know his last start wasn't great. He was a top prospect for the Giants. I like this spot. And where I'm usually trying to lean towards a total, because I'm looking at the weather mainly, I'm going to lean towards the Giants. I think something's wrong with Zach Gallen, and I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up on the IL soon. I have no information on that. I mean, you just watch this long enough and you see a guy that's been scuffling this bad who's supposed to be really good, and he is. And it's a free agent year for him, too. This guy's planning to get paid in the offseason, and his ERA is in the high 5s. Some really, really bad games. 2 out of his last 3 games, he just got butchered. So I'm going to lean towards the Giants here. I mean, I love the Giants' left-handed lineup facing Zach Gallen, who's hitting a lot of bats. Give me the Giants as my free play of the day. Again, guys, check out the premium picks. I had interesting day on Sunday. I went 3-0 in the WNBA. I won my triple play, but I went 2-3 overall in some really tough losses. I had the Braves who lost by 1. The Royals just didn't hit. I had the over in the Dodgers game. So I like to recap and talk about some of these things and tell you what I was seeing. But it does make it difficult because I'm talking about games, 2 days ago. So because of when this is recorded. Anyway, let me get out of here. I'll stop rambling and jibber jabbering. But make sure you check out the premium plays. Going to have a bunch, some WNBA, full slate of baseball. There's a lot that I'm going to like. So check those out. You'll see if I give out the triple play or my single plays. And I've told people this, the weather play of the day is usually my favorite play, but I try to denote and say it's, when it doesn't fall into that. Like I think Sunday was one of those days where the weather play of the day hit, but I told everybody what my favorite play was, and that hit as well, which was the Astros under. So, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to step out. I'll be back tomorrow to kind of go over everything. You'll probably see me jumping on the morning show a couple times this week. I was supposed to jump on Monday morning and didn't get there, but hopefully I'll see you guys at. Good luck today, and let's win some money.